Hello guys, welcome back to our channel. Welcome back to Victory Design. To all our old subscribers, thank you for tuning back in, and to all new subscribers, we are happy to have you here and we hope you do learn something from today's class. So today we are going to be taking a deep dive into one of the fundamental concepts of web design, which is the CSS box model. Now, whether you are creating a single or a simple web page or a complex web application, understanding the box model is very essential. So let's break it down together. Now, what is the box model? At its core, or rather at the simplest phase, this box model is a conceptual framework that describes how HTML elements are rendered on a web page, right? Now think of every element on your web page, be it your text, your images, your buttons, or whatsoever. Think of them to be a rectangular box. Now this box model is crucial because it helps us understand how these elements interact with each other in terms of layout and spacing. When the browser displays a web page, it treats each HTML element as a box that has specific properties determining how it looks and behaves. These properties include the width, the height, the padding, the borders, and the margins. Please get that. Now imagine everything on your browser. Imagine it is like a box. The box model is actually helps us to understand how those elements, which is your text, your images, your whatsoever, how they interact with each other in terms of their layout, in terms of how they are spaced, and in a whole lot of ways. Now, components of the box model. The first thing we have in terms of the box model is what? The content. The content is the first thing we have, of which the content is like the innermost part of the box where your actual content resides. Now, this is where your actual content resides, which includes things like your text, your images, or any other media like videos you want to display. Now, the height and the width. The height and the width are defined in the sense that you can set the height and the width of this your content using CSS properties. For example, if you want a box to be 300 pixels wide and 200 pixels high, you have to set those values in your CSS. All right. Of course, we'll particularize this, but let's just go through the theoretical aspects. Next, we have the padding. Now, this padding is the space between the content and the border of the box. The padding creates breathing room inside the box and ensures that your content doesn't touch the edges of the border. Now, inside the element, it's important to note that the padding is considered part of the element itself because it adds space within the box itself, affecting its overall width and height. Now, if you think about padding as an extra layer inside the box, it helps us to visualize how it separates our content from the border. Then number three now is the border. The border is the place that surrounds both the content and the padding. It is a line drawn around your element that can be styled in various ways. Now you can define borders using CSS properties by specifying the width, the style, and even the color. And then the last is what? The margin. The margin is the outermost layer of our box, which creates space between our box and surrounding elements on the page. Please, guys, come along with me to our VS Code. Let's actually practicalize all we've been saying because anybody can easily get confused by the box model because the box model is a little bit complex. So, guys, come along with me. Let's practicalize the box model. So, guys, let's actually practice the box model and break it down to be as simple as possible. Now, the first thing I want you guys to know in terms of the box model before we go further is the div tag. The div tag is a very important kind of tag which helps us when we are trying to make use of the box model. On the div tag, which is like this, let's just do that. Div, D-I-V, just that. Now, this div tag you see here right? This div tag you see here in HTML is a block level container used to group content on a web page. It is a block level container used to group early content on a web page. It helps to organize sections of the page, making it easier for us to style and manage our layouts with CSS. Now, by default, this div tag starts on a new line by default and takes the full width available, thereby creating distinct blocks of content. Now, why it doesn't have inherent styling, it allows us developers to apply custom styles and manipulate sections using CSS or JavaScript. So as we are going now deeper into the box model, we need to make use of this div, because this div helps us to, it's just like it helps us to create a box whereby we can then put our content on our web page. Hope you understand, guys. So we are going to be making use of the div tag as we go forward in this course. Now, let's let's explain the box model making use of the div tag. Now, imagine we are creating two boxes, right? We are creating two boxes on our web page. Imagine we'll start by defining the dimensions using our CSS. So the first thing we do now is that we create this. Now let me just give a gap so you understand what I'm doing. Okay, okay. Now let's use here. Good. Now let's use here. So I want you guys to get confused. Now the first thing is that imagine we are actually creating two boxes on our web page. We have to start by defining their dimensions using our CSS. So the first thing we have to do is that we create our div tag first, of which going to the opening div tag, which is this, we create a class. So in order for us to access or select this particular div, we need to create a class. We need to use the class attribute. So let's use class. We give it a class name of box, for example. We give the class name of box. Then we give it a style. We give it a style. Okay, now let's just leave that at that. Let's come here to our index of CSS. Our index of CSS. For us to get our for us to select our box, for us to select our box class name, we have to do box dot box, right? Because that's the name, the class name of of the div we just created. Then we have our braces. Now let's just give it a width. A width of what? A width of say 300 pixels, right? We give it a height of say 200 pixels. We give it a border of say 2 pixels, I guess, 2 or 1 pixels. So let's just go with 2 pixels, right? 2 pixels. And then we say it should be solid. It should be solid. That's for the border. The border should have a width of 2 pixels, and it should be solid. And the color of the border should be what? Should be let's go with black. Let's go with black. The border should be 2 pixels, 2 pixels thick. It should be colored black, and it should be solid. All right. Now let's control save this. Now in this example, we have set a width of 300 pixels, as you can see here, a width of 300 pixels and a height of 200 pixels for our content. Remember, guys, I told you all that we have content, which is the innermost part of the box where your actual content resides. So coming back to our code, we have, this is our content. This is where our content is going to reside. We have set it to have a width of 300 pixels, a height of 200 pixels, and a border of 2 pixels thick, solid, and black. Now we see that now looking at this, let's add some padding to this, which is the next thing we have here. Padding is what? The space between the content and the border, right? Now first of all, let's go back to our code. Now looking at our box that we have here, let's put a content inside. Let's put a content inside. Now let's say what should we say now? This is my box. This is my box. Now this is my content. We have put in a content into our box, right? This first box is where our content goes into. Now let's add some padding to this our box. And how do we do that? We come here as well. We come here and say padding to be what, 20 pixels. Now remember guys, from what I said earlier on, from what I said about padding, that padding is the space between the content and the border to create a breathing room inside the box. Now let's go back there. Now first of all, before I go forward, before I should even add this, let me remove this padding first of all, so you guys will understand what I'm trying to explain. Now let's view what we just did. Let's go live and view what we just did. So we take it a step at a time. Now this is it. This is my box, as you can see. Remember I told you that I this is the div, and this is my box, is my content, I can see here. Now I gave it a width. This is the width here. The sorry that this is the width. I gave it a width of 300 pixels. I gave it a height of 200 pixels. I gave it a border of what, of black, which is 2 pixels wide. Do we see this? I can change the color of the, but let's change the color of the border to something else. Let's say be red. Let's say it is red. Right? Control save. Let's say our border is red. You see that it has changed to some. You see, let's even increase the thickness of the border. Let's just play around with it a little bit. Let's make it 10 pixels. Control save. You see that now the border will be very thick, like very thick and wide, as against the way it was slim before. You see how thick it is. Now this is how you play with your code to see what suits you most or what you prefer. You see how thick it is. Now I hope you guys get the idea of what I'm trying to explain. Let's take this back to 2 pixels, because that looks more presentable. Good. We're taking it back to 2 pixels, as you can see here. Let's go back and view what we just did. Now it has gone back to the way it is. Now we want to create a padding. Remember guys, that padding is the space between the content and the border. Now let me tell you what that means. It means that padding is what? The space between the content. This is your content. This is my box, is your content. This is your content. This thing you are seeing here, this is my box, is your content. And the border is this red line you are seeing all around. Now the padding is the space between this content and this red line you are seeing. So we want to create a space between the two of them. And how do we do that? We make use of the padding attribute. So what do? We come here and then we say padding. Padding of what? Let's say 20 pixels of padding. Let's control save. Now we should see that now there should be a space of 20 pixels between your content and the border. Do you see here? Do you see it now? To your left and to your right, to the up and down, there's a padding of what, of 20 pixels. Now we see that there's an additional space between our content and its border due to what, padding. Now let's add some margin. Remember, that's the next thing we have on our list. Okay, margin is there. Now margin is what, the space between the box and the surrounding elements. Space between the box and the surrounding element to create separation and organization. Now let's go back to our code and actually practicalize what we just said. Now let's add some margin to separate this box from another box. All right, that means let's make it two boxes. Let's do that. Let's just copy and then create another box. Copy and paste. But let's change the class name to something else. Let's say box 2 instead, right? This is my box 1. Let me change that to box 1. This is my box 2. Good. Now let's come back here, and then let's go back to our CSS, and then let's also do the same thing we did here. Control copy, control paste. Let's change the box, because here we already have a box name of box, and this is box 2. So let's change this to box 2 instead. Instead of ordinary box, we'll be having box 2. That way it will definitely select box that we're referring to. Now we should have 2 boxes on our page. Let's go and refresh and see what we've done on our browser. Now we should be having 2 boxes on our page. You see? You see? Now we have 2 boxes. But mind you, the 2 boxes are not separated. They are conjoined together. So that is where you having margin comes into play. Because looking at it now, it seems as if we have a long box divided into 2. But now we want them to stand alone. We want each box to stand alone. We want to separate one box from the other. And how do we do that? We have to add a what? A margin. Now let's go back to our code and add a margin. Now let's add a margin to the first box, to box 1. Now let's come here and change this to box 1 to make it easier for you to understand. Let's say box 1. So we now have the first box is called box 1, having the class name of box 1, and the second box is now having the class name of what? Of box 2. Then coming here to our CSS, let's change that to what? To box 1. Now it can access and select what we have done. So good. Now let's add the margin, right? So they can be separated. Just say margin. Let's say we give it a margin of 30 pixels. 30 pixels. Let's control save and let's see what happens. Now let's go live to see if really our margin has actually been applied to our box. Good. Now you can see that we've added what? A margin of 30 pixels around box 1. Now if you notice something, guys, if you notice something, it seems as if this box has shifted to the right hand side, but this one is still going to the left. That's because this margin we did is margin that affects both the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. That is why we now have 30 margin space at the top, which is here, at the left, which is here, at the bottom, which is here, and at the what? At the right. But this box, on the other hand, which is box 2, doesn't have the same. And let's write something there to say box 2. Let's go back to our code and write here box 2 to have a content, which is this. Okay, it's supposed to display. This is box 2. Okay, oh, I see where the error is. Now this is a bug actually. If you notice, it wasn't displaying on the browser. That's because we already closed our div here. As you can see here, we have an opening div and a closing div already, and this content is supposed to be inside here, so let's just correct that. Control copy and put it in here. Please guys, this is an example of what we developers go through as we are coding, so always make sure to go through your code in case you have any bugs. This is what I'm doing right now, is what we call debugging in tech. This is me debugging the code. So I have debugged it and it should display correctly on my browser. So me going back to my browser, let's see if it actually displays correctly. Voila, it actually displays correctly. So I just fixed the bug, guys. Hope you all have learned how to fix bugs. I think I will give a video on this topic on how to debug. So let's continue, guys. So like you can see now, the box has gotten a margin of 30 pixels to the at the top, the left, the bottom, and the right. Now also we can specify where we want the margin to be, in the sense that, let's go to our CSS code. We could say, let's remove this, let's clean off this margin. We could say margin, we just want there to be a margin at the top, so we could say margin top 30 pixels. This means that there will only be a margin at the top, a margin of 30 pixels at the top, and the bottom, left, and right will not be affected. It will only affect the top. That is what this margin top means. We could also say margin bottom, margin left, margin right, depending on what we actually want to be displayed on our website. So guys, please take notes. Take note of this. In case you want to change your margin, you can change it based to the left, the right, the top, and the bottom. But when you say margin particularly, it applies to everything. It applies to both the left, right, the top, and the bottom. Do you see it now? Do you see it now? There's a margin between here and here. These two places. These two places I can see here. There's a margin between the two of them. Now, if I'm to apply, let's say I apply a margin to the bottom as well. Let's go back to our code and say margin top 30. Let's say margin bottom, let's say 70. So this means that it's going to be very wide. The distance between these two, between the two boxes is going to be very wide because I gave it a pixel of 70. You see? Do you see it, guys? Do you see it, guys? Now it is wider because here is 30, but here is 70. So the bigger it is, the wider it becomes. So guys, you can play around with this. You can play around with this. So basically, like we said earlier on, the margin is the space between the box and the surrounding elements, just as is displayed here. This the space between the box, this is the box, and this surrounding environment. Here, 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 and here, they are the surrounding environment surrounding this box. So you make use of margin if you want to separate this box from any element close to it, of which, in reference to box 2 is an element close to what box 1. So guys, always make use of your margin if you want to separate or space out your different elements on your web page. All right. And then the last on the list is what the border. Now the border is a line drawn around the content and padding, styled with width, style, and color, which we already did, which is this. This is the border. You can make use of borders if you want to create boxes and whatsoever. Now, mind you, we could also have a border, but it would not have what? It would not have a color. We can just remove color from there. Let's say remove a color. Let's say remove the color. Let's just do that. It won't show anymore. Let's control save and see what displays. We've taken off the color away from it, so I believe there should not be color in the first one. You see, it automatically goes to default black. You see what I'm saying, guys? So you can play around with all this. You can play around with all this. I believe you now have a grasp of what box model is all about. Now, the content which I already explained is the innermost layer, which has whatever you want to display on your website. It could be text, it could be an image, it could be a video, it could be whatsoever you want to be displayed on your website. Then going forward, the padding is the one that creates a space inside of your element. And then the border styles the outline. And the last but not the least, the margin is the space between your your box, right, and the environment, like what I just said. So guys, please practice all you've learned today. You can create two boxes on your web page, just I had done, adjust them and make use of them in order for you to understand all we've learned today. So understanding all these concepts will help you control layout effectively as you build your web pages. Now this CSS box model is foundational. Like it is very important for you to understand this box model. So guys, I implore you guys to please practice all we've learned today. In case you have any more questions, leave them on the comment section. I will try as much as possible to answer them all. I will try to answer them all. Please, guys, master all you've learned today. And I want to say thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you in the next class, and I hope this explanation has clarified what the box model is all about. And I promise you, if you apply all you learned today, you can easily manipulate